Hello, welcome back to the Engerati studio. I am joined by Sudheer from TCS. Hello, welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for your
Good
time
morning.
today. What kind of role do you have at TCS and what do you guys focus on at the moment?
So I head the utilities business for TCS. So it's one of the vertical business units,
Yeah.
and we provide services for utility customers. So which is the people who provide electricity, gas, and water services, and it's around the IT, some of the engineering services, and on the business process area. So we provide end-to-end services to these customers.
Okay, fantastic. And what are you guys here to do this week at European Utilities Week? What are you here to learn? Who are you here to meet?
You mean this particular event?
Yeah.
So here we have a few objectives. One is we would like to use this platform to voice our opinion about what we think of the industry. Second, we are getting some of our customers and to-be customers on panel conversations and things like that to get their point of view. We also have a booth here. We are demonstrating some of the work that we have done, the investments that we have made, and sort of get feedback from the people. So that's essentially what we're trying to do.
Okay, fantastic. So I kind of wanted to just pick your brain a little bit about reimagined utilities in a hyperconnected world.
Yeah.
What would you say is your take on the hyperconnected world?
So the hyper-connected world in general, there are a few aspects to it. One is how people in today's world using technology can connect faster and better. So there is a people connection aspect. The second aspect is about how the various machines, devices, and can also connect to each other and talk to each other. So together, we are saying it's a hyper-connected world. It is not just about very limited, once in a day kind of a connection or whatever. It's real time, machines talking to each other, people talking to each other, and this technology available. So that's essentially what is defined as a very hyper-connected world.
Okay, and I suppose, how do you see reimagined utilities in a hyper-connected world?
So in utilities, if you look at from traditionally how utilities were providing services to what can happen in the hyper-connected world, there is an aspect of utility industry itself undergoing some changes. Like generation is no more done centrally; it is distributed. You and me as consumer can also produce electricity. So there is a distributed generation which calls for a need for a hyper connection. Okay. Secondly, there are these digital forces of social media and mobility and analytics and all of that from outside in playing to the utilities. So every value chain of utility is getting impacted. For example, if you take the generation side of the business, since there are so many distributed generators, there is a possibility of a virtual power plant coming into play, which is using all these digital technologies. We can enable a virtual power plant. If you look at the distribution side of it, and if you look at simple things like transformers, in the older world, it was about people going and checking the status of a transformer. It's ready for maintenance, it is broken. Today, with sensors and Internet of Things, a transformer can actually communicate about its status, need for maintenance. It can even have the ability to find out who's the field worker close by and get the field worker to come and maintain. It can become autonomous in a way and do the the whole maintenance activity. It can become autonomous. And there are things like trading of electricity with the storage coming into play. How we can use analytics and the digital technologies to enable somebody to trade much better, to decide when to charge your storage, when to sell the stored energy. So each value chain in a utility industry is getting subjected to the concept of hyperconnection, and there is enough and more possibilities for utilities to leverage this and provide different services to customers. It's not just about providing electricity. I can ensure that your home is safe, your home is well connected. I can provide the home energy services for you, and I create a new energy, it's a new revenue stream with that. So the possibilities are endless. So it's about how utilities would want to leverage that, because some of these services can be provided by a third-party service provider. You don't have to be a utility to provide that. So the barriers for others to get into this space is coming down. So that's the challenge the industry has. That's our view actually.
So I suppose it's going to be a lot of people are going to have to really differentiate themselves from each other, suppliers and so on. Would you say customer engagement and things like that?
There is. So
model?
yes, there is on one side there is a customer expecting to be engaged much better. On the other side, when you look at the grid, so there is a lot of intelligence that is required on the how efficiently you manage the grid and connect that part of it and the consumer together, right? So as a utility, and in even utilities, there are players, for example, in the UK, who generate and who supply. They don't do distribution. If you look at US, they're vertically integrated. They provide all services. So depending on which value chain you are, you need to find ways of providing new services. I would, rather than differentiate, I would say there are possibilities of providing new services and providing the same services in a much more efficient manner. So those are the two aspects a utility should focus. Differentiation will sort of automatically happen.
Yeah. So I suppose how do companies like yourself enable this reimagination?
You mean TCS, what are we doing in this space?
Yeah.
So for us, so there is an aspect of providing consulting. So how can we go and look at the market scenario where the customer is, how advanced or mature that market and that customer is, and being able to provide a roadmap of what is the utility of the future and what are the possible things that you can do as a utility. So one is about consulting. The second is we are investing in creating platforms. So we have a platform which will enable this whole Internet of Things, okay, called the teacup. So it essentially helps take data from different sensors, be able to do some analytics on it, and use the findings from the analytics to feed back into those devices. So we're creating platforms. So that is one thing that we are doing. We're also working on partnerships with other firms who are creating those sensors, and because of that they have access to data, right? So we partner with them to use that data to be able to do further analytics. So there's a partnership is another thing that we are doing. Thirdly, for a company like ours where we are providing services, we need to have a huge number of people with knowledge of these kind of technologies to be available to go and do a project for the customers. So we are investing significantly in building that capability in TCS. So partnership, people, platforms, consulting. So these are the 4 areas where we are working on, which will help us to provide the right advice and services for the customers.
Okay.
That's how we look at it.
Okay, fantastic. And I suppose the last question I'd like to ask is, what kind of advice would you give to utilities today? What piece of advice would you give them?
I don't know whether you call it advice. The way I think a utility should look at is the possibilities of providing different services. How do I as a utility get to that first? Because I have advantage. I know the customer, I have a lot of data. So how do I get to that first? How do I engage with the customer and provide those services? Okay. How do I leverage these technologies to look at every opportunity for efficiency and move forward. One of the critical things I feel is in the utility industry, especially when it is a consumer facing, whether it is a business consumer or a residential consumer, we still not figured out what is that tipping point or what is that thing which will really catch the attention of the customer. Yeah, electricity bills can come down and but is that enough for a customer to latch on to some of these technologies and some of these services? That is something that needs to be figured out. I think the industry will find it. Whichever utility that finds that first will do a lot better.
Yeah.
Right? So be on the watch. Don't ignore this whole new revolution that is happening on hyperconnection. Don't think that this is not for an industry like ours, which is more regulated and essential services. It's definitely going to have a role to play here. Definitely going to have. So whoever gets there first has an advantage.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's how I would like to. I don't know whether to call it advice or a point of view, but that's what I think.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I do hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah.
Please do visit engerati.com for more interviews like this over the next coming 2 days. Thank you.